So good afternoon. I will go briefly, very briefly, because I think I don't have too much time, about some of the things that we are doing regarding the quantum strategy in Europe. As you know, we have announced it this year. This is a work that has been done for almost 2 years, and we have done it mainly with the member states. And the first question is why we believe that we need to have a quantum strategy and why now. So as you know, one of the things is that there is a global race now. You have seen in the newspapers, and it's heating up. We see now that, especially in China, from the government side, and the United States, from the point of more from the private side, there is an increase in investment. Also, in Europe, I think it's a particular scenario because we have very good, as has been said, from the point of view of startups, we have a very good ecosystem, but it's a fragile ecosystem. And we don't have enough private capital to basically foster this ecosystem. And there is something that is very particular in Europe compared to other regions. That is a problem that is the fragmentation. So we have national, we have regional initiatives, we have national initiatives, and we have European initiatives. And sometimes we don't speak with each other. And this is a problem that we have seen. I was talking this morning with a colleague, and he was telling me about a call that is very similar for software, quantum software in Europe, compared to the one that has been launched last year in Germany. So we believe that these are some issues that we need to sort it out, and we have been discussing this with the member states, and we came to what you have. I think it's like 25 page documents with 5 areas. And I will go really briefly through the different areas. So the first area is research and innovation. And here, there are different things. We can later, if you want, I can go a little bit more in detail about the Quantum Grand Challenge. But here, the main objective is to have a single EU and member state research and innovation agenda. So at least it doesn't mean that we will not have regional, national, or European calls. We will continue with all of them, but more coordination there. The second one, this area, is something that we have started some time ago. You know, most of you probably know the EuroQCI. That is a quantum communication network that we are deploying currently in Europe with basically terrestrial links and also satellite links. Also, we are doing the procurement of quantum computers and the integration of these quantum computers into the supercomputers that we have with EuroHPC. We are launching also, and we are going to continue working on this, on launching a network of sensors. So basically, deployment of infrastructure and sensors. We have started with the quantum gravimeters and also quantum MRIs, and we are going to launch next year a call on inertial navigation on quantum sensors for the deployment. The third area is everything that is related to the ecosystem, and here we are talking about from production lines. We are launching. It's going to be by the end of this year, beginning of the next year, the 6 product lines, that is industrial product lines, on top of what we have done now. On basically the idea here is to have production lines for quantum chips. We are doing, this is a call that is coming next year as part of the CHIPS EU, is a quantum design facility to provide also to the companies and RTOs who are working on the design of these things, to design of the quantum chips, provide a platform that they can use. And also we are doing test beds, and we will launch next year the competence clusters. That is a national level. This is a completely new area, so this is area 4. It's something that until now we were not doing it because, as you know, Horizon Europe and Digital Europe program, that are the programs that we are using, they were not permitting. They was focused only on civil, so basically we were not doing anything that was related to defense. This has changed now for different reasons at geopolitical level in Europe. And now one of the things that we will do is all the coordination also with the European Defense Agency. We are starting to talk also with NATO and also with DEFIs, with DigiDefis, that are focusing on everything that is related to space and dual-use quantum technologies. As you know, by default, the majority of the quantum technologies are dual-use, and this is one of the things that we are going to exploit in the next years. And the fifth area is related to quantum, the skills and talent. This is something that we believe is extremely important, especially it will be during the next years. One of the main initiatives that we are launching in 2026 is what we call the Virtual European Quantum Skills Academy. And it's going to be a very big and broad initiative at European level in order to cover the majority of the requirements related to quantum skills. That is going from industrial courses, also to everything that is related to, for example, masters, PhDs, so there are different activities that we are going to do that. So these are the, and very, very fast, these are the 5 areas that we are covering. Regarding the governance, I will not go too much into detail, just to let you know that the main governance, everything is done between the member states together with the quantum flagship. We are now working on the Quantum Act, that it will be done next year. It will be published at the end of next year. And the idea here on the Quantum Act is to have support from the point of view of funding and also from the point of view of how it's going to be implemented. And I'm talking here, we are going to have a Quantum JU, for example, or we are going to use the EuroSPC JU, as we are doing now, in order to do all the implementation of the quantum strategy. And just to finish, we are doing also international collaboration, international cooperation and collaboration. We are working also on standardization with different initiatives, and we will continue doing that. We are trying to be more and more open. We have done calls with Japan, Canada. We are doing now with Korea, and we are going to open it also with Australia and New Zealand, most probably. And that's it. I think, sorry if I was a little bit fast. I think we will have now time to discuss it, but if you have questions later, I will be after we finish. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Oscar, for a very concise but also comprehensive overview of the quantum strategy. And we will now go take this discussion a little bit further and look more closely how we can foster commercialization of quantum computing in Europe. And for this, I would like to invite our panelists on stage. The first one is Morten Bache, Scientific Director at Novo Nordisk Foundation. He leads on quantum technologies, AI, and data science at one of the largest private foundations in the world. And he shapes R&D opportunities through grants, investments, and research centers in Denmark and beyond. Morten, it's great to have you here. Please take a seat. And then we have Oscar Diez, who I already introduced. And our last speaker today is Dr. Leonhardt, Vice President for Business Development and Partner Management at eleQtron, one of Europe's leading hardware startups. And in eleQtron, he's responsible, wherever you like, in eleQtron, he's responsible for go-to-market strategy, products, and services roadmaps. So I'm very happy to have you all here. Yeah, and I would like to start with you, Oscar, since you gave a very nice, comprehensive presentations of different areas and different mechanisms that are supposed to drive quantum technologies forward. Maybe just to get a little gist of it, what's, in your opinion, are the key elements with regards to quantum computing that will really leverage the commercialization of this technology in the past next years?
So I will say that there are two. So one is from the point of view of the hardware. So we need to have proper hardware where we run, and together with that, there is the software. So we need to continue pushing there. So we have been pushing in Europe. We have been pushing a lot on hardware. We have done it on software, but not at the pace that we should do it, and it's something that we would like to do. In fact, we are now preparing a workshop in October, at the end of October, in order to, with the main stakeholders at European level, in order to prepare a possible grand challenge quantum software call for next year. So this is one. I think these two things we need to continue supporting, but also there is a part of users and how basically the industry, how they are going to start to use those systems. and bringing. So basically, we need to have them there co-designing the applications also with the people in the, especially in the software. And this is something that is still not, from my point of view, is still not happening, and we should push a little bit more to have those companies basically more involved into this software development.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's very good points, which we also dive a little bit deeper later in the conversation. But I would like to turn to you, Morten. I think those who attended a Microsoft keynote today in the morning have already get a little bit glimpse of how Novo Nordisk is involved in quantum technologies, but I'm sure you also do more than that. Maybe you can give us a little bit overview how Novo Nordisk Foundation positions itself in quantum ecosystem.
Yes, thank you. So we realized at the end of the 2010s that we as a foundation had a unique opportunity to shape the quantum ecosystem that was strong in Denmark, but mainly also, as Oscar mentioned, it's very strong in research, but there were many components that were still missing in order for the ecosystem to become strong enough to be competitive. So we invested in a quantum computing program, which is around 200 million euros into an academic effort of building a full-stack quantum computer, develop the technologies, and the bar is really high, so we are not just building a quantum computer, we are aiming to build a fault-tolerant quantum computer. So the one that we are all waiting for. And we believe there was a good place to put it in an academic setting because we could see that a lot of the companies out there were sort of closing in on their technology, and we believe that we had to collaborate in order to develop the technologies that are needed for a fault-tolerant quantum computer. It's a very, very complex stack that you need to integrate in order to achieve this goal with the millions of qubits that are orchestrated. And it led to also the realization that in order to anchor the technology, it's not very good that this kind of technology lives in an academic setting, but so we set up a private company in the bottom of the stack that is called Quantum Foundry Copenhagen, that is essentially developing the materials and the tools and the characterization methods for building the quantum chips. And the reason we set it up there was because we believed this was more an engineering effort and that the IP would live better as a trade secret instead of patents. So putting it into a private company, we were able to hire engineers that would not normally work at a university, give them good salaries, give them good working conditions. They are not striving for a Nature paper or anything like that. They're striving towards one goal, building the technology for a fault-tolerant quantum computer. That was 2022, 2023 that we did this. Then during this trip, we also did some investments in AI and supercomputing. And we also realized that, like Oscar was saying, that there's something missing in terms of waiting for the fault-tolerant quantum computer. And we could see that people were struggling with the current quantum computers, the noisy intermediate scale quantum, NISQ machines. But we also saw in 2024 breakthroughs in terms of logical qubits. So new technologies came out with error correction, and we could see that this kind of intermediate stage, the early logical qubit quantum computers would be an interesting place. So we started a dialogue with Microsoft and Atom Computing about delivering a full stack commercial system to Denmark and essentially giving us access to 50 logical qubits of high quality with neutral atoms. So it's 1,200 physical qubits. And we bought this commercial system, signed the contract in June and announced it in July this year. And the system will be delivered in Q4 next year, and it will be in Copenhagen. And it's again put into a company that is a private company that offers this compute at cost. And the reason, the thing that we want to do with this investment is to give access to the local ecosystem, these technologies that are needed to drive the technology development towards the fault-tolerant quantum computer, and also to connect with the industry and the end users with a very integrated solution that gives a great software interface and really, really high quality qubits at the end that they can really use for something to go towards new applications. So So we would very much like to engage with the European ecosystem in trying to see how we can develop these use cases in systems like this, collaborate with other systems.
So in that sense, what I'm hearing, you also try to focus on different levels of the stack and try to cover this hardware first?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really important for us that this system that we have made a partnership with Atom Computing and Microsoft, that it's not a closed system, but a quite open system. So you can access the various parts of the stack and develop some of the technologies, be curious about, once you enter into logical qubits, you have to realize that you also have to do error correction, and there are many ways of doing error correction. So the way that you get it as a software is a service from Microsoft and Atom is a certain suite of error correction techniques, but maybe you have a better idea, then you can do that. You can even get access to the physical qubits and code them directly with the low-level coding. So there are many possibilities across the stack to develop the technology, and that was important for us.
Thank you. It's very interesting. And you would say you work probably also close with the Danish government, so it's a line, or it's a part of the bigger Denmark strategy in that.
Yeah, and exactly. We had a 50-50 partnership. It's a public-private partnership. So the other partner in crime is the Expert in Innovation Foundation, the Danish National Sovereign Fund, which is independent but takes funding from the national government and invests in important new technologies.
Thank you. Tim, I'll now turn to you. You are wearing today multiple hats on this stage, and thank you for trying to represent these different, let's say, communities. You are here as a vice president of eleQtron. You are here, you're also part of the bigger European community on quantum technologies of QUIC, and you're also part of our Bitcoin working group. So I will turn to you as an industry voice in that sense. When you look at the ambitions and the plans of the European Quantum Europe strategy, where do you see the main opportunities, but maybe also the weakest points in terms of commercialization of technology?
And one thing I recognize, and I thought back when I got this question a little bit, like when I first kind of had contact with quantum, and that was during my studies in 2006, what you actually see that, I mean, at this point, there were even discussions if it's like academically interesting to do a quantum computer, because there were Nobel Prize physicists who said, you will never build a quantum computer that does anything, even academically interesting. I think we all can agree that there are academic results that are valuable in understanding these systems better. And I mean, what you see that in these last 20 years is actually that we shifted from acknowledging that there's an academic value to setting up this bigger academic projects, the flagship in Europe that drove the science in Europe that, as you said, put us in a very good position. Now to these programs, like for example, now I'm giving you an example of our company, my company, I work at, is that 5 years ago or 7 years ago, I wouldn't have expected that in Germany you have an ecosystem of software companies, quantum software, quantum hardware companies, and so on. That was again supported by the German government, starting all these little, and I really like there was this picture that you had of this ecosystem that's still a little plant, because I mean most of those companies are like 5 years old. And they live from these government contracts and the state as an anchor client, because we are, as you say, it's great to see that there are private companies building these capabilities up, but we are still at the stage where there is not a clear use in industry and a very big market. It's like a niche market where you sell a few machines that are mainly funded by some private investors, but also mainly by governments and research institutions. And if we really want to, let's say, continue and make sure that we can lead in this effort, there needs to be a continued support, but also, I think, a continued focus. And you said it, it needs to be a focus across the stack. We started to drill tunnels to, let's say, survey how we connect. But now it's I think, good to have this orchestrated and aligned for all the different platforms on hardware, software level. And it's really good to see that, let's say, all these levels turn up in the strategy, and that startups are playing an important role, because I mean they're also taking the risks that maybe some other players wouldn't.
focus and alignment is a good keyword here, which I think we all agree at this point. And I agree with you. Also, during let's say during the time that we started this topic in a Bitcom, this ecosystem became flourishing. We have a lot of startups. We have a lot of organizations, also not just in Germany, in Europe, institutions, universities that are doing a lot of development projects, developing different platforms. And meanwhile, there is still an impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the US startups, US firms, specifically US, but also other around the world, which are backed by, of course, deep private capital, they seem to be moving faster, or at least being very bold in what they are announcing in their roadmaps. So I would like to ask you, and I think the common also notion in the ecosystem, quantum ecosystem, is it is an open. It's still early in the race. There is still a lot of possibilities, and we still have a lot to achieve in Europe. But I would like to ask you, how do you perceive? Is there actually a gap widening, or do we actually still have a chance? If I might ask like this.
Okay, now I'm challenged with my two heads, but I mean, yeah. So I agree. I mean, from the beginning there was a gap. Yeah, we started like 5, 7, 8 years later. I think. I mean, IBM put their first machines in 2016 on the web or so. Yeah, eleQtron was founded in 2020, like many other German hardware companies. So there is definitely, let's say, an advantage and a gap. Maybe. Also in funding, which I think maybe is not the biggest bottleneck in the very beginning. One thing, and now I can only rely on the data that I have of eleQtron, is that we actually compared like what kind of investments did we collect and how many qubits did we build, like say, in the same time. And one thing that, to be honest, surprised me when we looked at it is that we are actually very fine. Yeah? So we are in the range of 10 qubits with the systems that we are designing and tuning up. And we have 1/10 of the funding that AIDAQ and US competitors had at this time. And this is not only because like eleQtron will be such a great company, but actually, and we can talk more about this, is that we have in Europe a really good ecosystem. Yeah? So there are a lot of factors that help us to be maybe a little bit more efficient. Then also, I mean, if you're let's say, it's a little bit hard to define this, but they're an older and more established quantum company, yeah, then maybe you have already decided for a certain qubit modality or so, and that's then you're focusing on it, and there's a trade-off of risk and return. Yeah? But what we now saw a couple of months ago is that AIDAQ bought a startup that has a different technology from the UK and from Europe, which also shows that we are maybe on the right path. Yeah? And the gap is, I would argue, not widening. We are developing different solutions along this very complex stack, and I think it's a very good idea to stay in the race and be trustful that we have our things that we are good and maybe even better than others.
So, Oscar, then I will turn to you. How can we make sure that the gap is actually not widening? As we all mentioned here, that we have different streams of development. Do we? Which mechanism will help us to make it even more effective and to scale faster the existing technologies across Europe? Do you see the need for more, maybe coordination also between different countries in that?
So yes, there is the need for coordination, and this is one of the reasons why we did that. I think, as I said, that when I was speaking before, it's not a question of not doing things at national and regional level and at European level, but it's more coordinating where do we want to put the money and acknowledge that this is the right thing to do. So this is something that we are trying to do now together with using the model that we use for the Euro HPCJU. So there, the way it works is basically we have it's basically the Commission with the member states, and so we decide the calls and we decide how much money each country wants to put in one of the calls. So now, how to reduce this gap? If there is a gap, that depending on who you are, some people say that there is a big gap with even with China or with the US and quantum computing compared to Europe. I agree with him. In some cases, the majority of the cases is a question of funding, and also having the right people and the right companies. They come back to the industry to have use cases. And regarding the funding, it's a problem of basically, you have companies like IBM, like Microsoft, that is really difficult to put for a company that, for a European company that is relatively small, to go to have the same resources or the same funding as these companies have. Together, also the fact that at European level, and this is not a problem only for quantum, it's for other technologies, there is the risks of the investors when they are, so they want to see the return, let's say, in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So we are not thinking in long term. And this is a problem that, as I said, is not only affecting to us and the companies, they feel that. And for us, one of the biggest risks here is the fact that, and we are starting to see, it was a few months ago in UK, that companies that they have quite a lot of funding or cash, they are going and picking up the companies at European level and basically buying the company itself. And this is a risk that is there, and it's not easy to basically to stop it. So from our point of view, is continue funding research, try to bring as much as possible these companies closer to the market. For example, as one of the things that we have done is the procurement of quantum computers. For some of these companies, it was extremely interesting the fact that they have the first computer that they can install in a supercomputer center, for example. And why? Because the majority of the people who were coming, they were not used to deal with customers. They were not used to put a system that normally is done by researchers, PhDs in physics, and to put it in something that needs to be 24 hours in operation. And the fact that you have this, that you have interactions with the customers, that you start to have people using it, is good. So these are the type of things that we need to continue doing. On top of that, what we need to do, and this is something that we are trying to do, but it's not easy, is to bring also private capital. So one of the things that we are going to launch is for probably the end of this year, is what the Quantum Computing Grand Challenge, where we are doing is together with the European Investment Bank, is put funding, so the companies at European level in quantum computer, they can have access to this funding, that it will come from the European Investment Bank. And the European Investment Bank, it will also bring private capital. So the idea is that 1/3 is coming from our side as loans, and also private investors, because the European Investment Fund is doing all the due diligence, they are going to bring also this capital. And this is, but this is, as I come back to the same thing, it's not one thing that you do and it will solve the issue. I think there are a lot of things that you need to do, also skills, so it's a little bit complex.
Morten, I would like to turn to you, because I read recently that there is joint enough efforts are happening in the Nordic part of the Europe, that there are collaborations between, correct me, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland at least. Can you maybe tell a little bit more what are the goals of this collaboration and why you decided to join forces there in this specific constellation?
Yes, it is certainly not to exclude anyone else. We really feel that even if the geopolitical shifts are not super friendly to some countries, that we should collaborate quite broadly. But we also have to realize that with certain technologies, and quantum being one of them, it's a very good starting point to start with a local ecosystem and like-minded partners. And we already have a great collaboration in the Nordics in terms of the way the governments interact, the Nordic culture, the way that there's trust in the community, and it all really also starts with data and the understanding on how data can go across borders, and so now quantum comes into it. So we have been exploring for a while this Nordic collaboration on using quantum technologies for specific applications, and we have been focusing on life sciences as one endpoint. That's the Novo Nordisk Foundation is a life science-based foundation, so we are really interested in things that have to do with, for instance, sensing in the heart or in the brain, or it could be drug development with quantum computing and things like that. So we have for around 5 years now explored this sort of Nordic collaboration, and it's getting to a good place. And at the same time, the Nordic countries have signed an agreement in the spring about collaborating on quantum technologies. It's not that it has a lot of money and legislation like the European one, but it's more like an intention to do stuff together, and it's about developing talent, the research investments in terms of infrastructure and access and so on and so forth, that we try to collaborate and try also to do workshops and challenges and stuff like that together. So we believe that if we can be successful in the Nordics, then we can also broaden that out to Europe and show the European players, this is how we can do it. Do you want to join this movement? And the quantum computer that we talked about before, Magne as it's called, it's the son of the god Thor, the one with the thunderbolts from the Nordic mythology. That quantum computer is going to be accessible specifically for the Nordic ecosystem. Because we believe it's too little compute effort to give to the entire world or even to Europe. So we start with the Nordics and then we see where it goes. But we believe that this is a good starting point, and then we really believe that the European ecosystem is where a lot of the resources need to be. I think that the way that when we set up this private company in the bottom of the stack, Quantum Foundry Copenhagen, that was also a realization, how do we avoid losing all the time the companies as soon as they get to scale up and then they disappear to the US or getting bought up and stuff like that. One way of doing it is that a private foundation like us owns it without getting any profit or return from it and just keep the technology anchored in Denmark. End of story. So we can own this company forever and ever. We are a very patient investor. We don't want any profits. We are not allowed to get any profits. So we just keep the technology anchored.
That's a very interesting model, both with the foundation, but also with the collaboration between the Nordics. How do you see it? What could be the ways to scale it through, first of all, to transfer it to other countries within Europe and scale it as a European approach? Well, or is it like specific Danish USP?
So basically, for instance, both in terms of AI compute, we bought an NVIDIA supercomputer that was the top 21 in the world on the top 500 list. Gefion that was launched last year, and now we have this quantum computer. They're both set up in private companies that are offering the compute at commercial rates for the market. The company is also a private company, and these things can be copied to other countries, and they can even provide service to other countries. So anybody who wants to collaborate with Quantum Foundry Copenhagen on developing materials and chips for their quantum computers can just come to them. And I know that a lot of the people in the room and at this conference have already had dialogues with the company. So this is a way of creating, the thing is to create an entity, academic or private, that is able to provide value to the ecosystem, and where the value is sort of a magnet to concentrate talent and innovators and investment capital. And we can already see that this creates more, and it creates more, that people are interested in getting new investments, new capital, new companies coming in, new investments coming in. So yeah, so basically this is, we should just think about how do the academic or private entities bring more value than just innovate and spin out and just hope for the best. I think that is, we should also do that, but that path has some problems.
And going to what you said, creating value, and we already touched on the point of users and generating demand. You touched on this point, like we have a broad industrial base in Europe. We have a lot of potential early users of quantum computing, which are not yet. What do you see, how we can activate these users? How we can make sure, like how it's happening in Denmark, trying to to bring more European users to European quantum systems. What are the levers that facilitate this engagement? Question to all of you, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what was said before about, that we need to find some good solutions for engaging the industrial end users, get them, figuring out how to develop use cases that are solutions to some of their problems that are related to quantum, that can be solved by quantum, and some of it will go into a dead end, and it will be okay. I mean, it also took machine learning a while to find the right algorithms for the right problems. So we should just be patient there. But a lot of hackathons, innovation challenges, things like that would be really that would be a great thing to see in the European ecosystem, where we try to collaborate on this. So.
Yeah, how do you approach this challenge?
Yeah, currently what we have done since, I think, is this year, we started last year, is all the calls that we are going to launch, especially the ones that are, let's say, to the higher levels or high-tier levels. We will ask to have, as part of the consortium, to have partners that are final users. So we started, for example, even a call that we launched 3 years ago that it was in quantum software. And one of the things that it was mandatory is to come with specific use cases and have basically the companies, and we have companies at European level as users, and they were part of the use case and they were part of the partnership. So this is something that we are starting to do. This is something that we have done. Another thing that we are doing, and we are in the process, is, as you know, we are procuring, for the moment, we have 10 quantum computers and simulators that are installed in, or are going to be, some of them, 3 of them are already installed, and we're installing the rest all over Europe. And the access model that we will have is going to be similar to the one that we have for HPC. So basically, in principle, it will be free for anybody that wants to use it, and it could be a research institution, but it also could be industry. There are different types of access, but for industry also, the idea here is that if somebody is coming with a really nice use case and they can demonstrate that it will be useful, is they will have access time to the quantum computers, and we will have also support, because we have created what we call quantum excellence centers, that they are focusing on one on industry and one on science, and the idea is that they are helping these companies in order to use those quantum computers. These are some of the things that we are doing, but I'm pretty sure that there are other things. I don't know if you want to say something.
And one thing I think that would help at the current stage, and this is getting back to, let's say, these compound conversion effects and making sure that, let's say, all the different little plans that we build for software across the stack, that they're getting compatible. And I think one thing that really helps is to make sure that you're doing projects and challenges, programs that are, let's say, have like a full stack scope, where you have hardware players, software algorithm players, and end users that over long term work very tightly together. Not only by, I mean, it's good that we didn't start with the most complex program and that we said, hey, we need quantum software and we need this and this. And now there are a lot of solutions that try to, where it's really important that they work together, because we still, I mean, there's one big gap in the development is still that some software and algorithm or use case developers say they need millions of qubits and over billions of gates. And then you have some discussions and you recognize, maybe if you use this lever in our system, then you need only a tenth of it or so. So really making sure that this fits together. And I think also, and that's sometimes it's argued against, because it's like a bigger investment or so. But I think we need to do like a, I think in English it's actually called breakthrough. So you dig a few tunnels and you need to connect them, and you need to adapt your software to the hardware, because otherwise you will not make the connect. I mean, if you've done the connection and it's nicely compatible, then you can aim for doing more general solutions and so on. But let's say I think it's important that if we want to have one good solution to start, let's say with these partnerships, that they have a really and a little bit narrower focus, but that can align their approaches, like deciding, okay, like you did, it's neutral atoms, and then you have a completely different software stack. Because, I mean, at some point, we need to have more graspable results when we want to get out of this niche market of being a supercomputer accelerator for academics to making something sensible for industry.
The Nobel Prize was awarded last year to development of AlphaFold, which was an AI solution to a classical computational problem in protein chemistry. And that was developed through many years of competitions, where there was a data set put out and try to solve this, and whoever gets closest wins the prize. And then at the end, somebody said, let's do it with AI and at DeepMind. And then they did it. So these kind of things, we have to have the patience. It was not developed overnight, I have to say. So the same with the large language models that we have today. They didn't come overnight either. It took a decade or more to really develop both the hardware, the software, and the data to make a merry, soup that actually came up with the inflection point. So this is something we have to explore.
We're coming now to the end of our discussion, and I would like to bring it back to the strategy that was presented and the next step that you have shown us that we can expect for next year. I would like to ask you, all three of you, what would be for you two measurable outcomes to know that we are moving forward within Europe? If, for example, we meet next year and we want to ask us a question, are we actually now further, or are we staying in the same place? What would be the measurable outcomes that you would say, because of this and this, we are now actually advancing our quantum tech? You can start, whoever wants to start.
I can just say, for me personally, I think that Denmark and Nordisk we will progress. There is no doubt about that. But if I'm zooming out to Europe, I'm really hoping to see, we just saw IQM landing the biggest Series B ever in quantum. I would like to see more of that, the scale-up stage, that we can really see a consolidation of great European companies that are actually able to stay in Europe and engage in the European ecosystem. And then the next measurable progress is going to be all the new quantum computers coming online, including Euro HPC quantum computers and so on, and how users will start using them, see data from that and see how and then we can, and hopefully we'll get some good benchmarking and pilot test cases out that can engage the community.
Thank you.
So I will get. I have one of them is basically we have I will say that we have a set of KPIs. We have been doing it as part of the quantum flagship for the last 3 years, and we publish. So they are specific on quantum computing. We measure different quantum computing, quantum communication, and quantum sensing. And in quantum computing, some of the things that you say, for example, from the point of view of having access to our systems, how many systems we have online, how many people, so companies or industry are using those systems. Also from the point of view of funding that is available to European companies. So there are different, I will not, so we have been, it's not that I came with those KPIs. Those KPIs were created by the people from the ecosystem. And I will focus, I will say, like, we have seen that in the last 2 years they are moving forward, and that they are continuing moving forward. So we have some targets for 2030, and for me that will be but it's linked on some of the things that you have said.
Thank you.
I have one high-level wish. I think I would love that we, let's say, continue this dialogue and understanding like which companies, which countries provide which kind of capabilities. Because from my perception, like the discussion is sometimes like on a level like, oh, France is great in hardware and Germany is great in software. Yeah? I think it would be nice if we get to a level that is a little bit below this to really kind of, let's say, understand and try out how we make this, let's say, this value chain in Europe happening and getting to some solutions that where a lot of people, companies can grow a cake together than competing for something that doesn't yet exist. Especially as we all, let's say, competing with worldwide very strong players. And then, let's say, on the smaller level, I'm looking forward to push this with eleQtron and making systems available to get users their first experience and delivering on our side, besides putting claims to others.
So maybe next year you will tell us about the experience of the users on the eleQtron machines. Thank you very much for being here, for joining this discussion. Yeah, please.